expect that, given what's happening with the dollar, we should see CNY continue to strengthen?
I think so. You just have to look at the fixings that the PBOC does on a daily basis. The daily fixings for dollar CNY have actually come in line with what you'd expect, and occasionally it's actually come in slightly below what you'd expect, so weaker for the US dollar, stronger for the CNY. So I do think if we see a dollar depreciation trend, dollar CNH and dollar CNY should track that, and we expect dollar CNH to end the year at around 690. Now, the only fly in the ointment, if you will, for anyone trading CNH, as ever, is sort of the US-China relationship. But I think it's important to emphasize what FX traders care about is the sustainability of the Phase 1 trade deal between the US and China. And so far, all indications are that the US-China situation is escalating on many fronts, but not on the Phase 1 trade deal. We've had comments out from both sides saying that for the time being, the trade deal remains in place. China is committed to importing more. We saw in the trade numbers last week that China's imports from the U.S. picked up by over 11% year over year. So I think as long as that Phase 1 trade deal is in place, then the CNH should continue to strengthen versus the U.S. dollar.
But Adarsh, why is that the only thing the market seems to worry about? And I agree that is what we are seeing here, because you could say this is just one agreement. The tensions we're talking about on other fronts have the potential to impact the economic relationship for years and decades going forward. So why is the market willing to look through the other areas of tension?
Sure, that's a good question. I mean, the way I rationalize it is historically, China, when they're facing any sort of economic or political volatility, they've actually tried to keep the FX as stable as possible because they don't want the CNH to be a source of instability. Because if the CNH is weakening by a lot, obviously that leads to other problems such as capital outflows, tighter onshore liquidity, stuff you don't want to have during any sort of economic or political crisis. However, the only exception to that has been obviously 2018 and 19, where as a result of trade uncertainty and the trade war between the U.S. and China, they did allow the renminbi to depreciate to offset the impact of tariffs. I think that was pretty clear over the past 2 years. So this is why I think, people realize that if it's something that's centered on trade and tariffs, then the CNH can weaken and the PBOC would allow the dollar CNY fixings to move higher. If it's anything else, then they're going to try and keep the CNH or the renminbi as stable as possible. And therefore, you aren't necessarily going to see the renminbi weaken. You might see other asset prices in China weaken, but the FX will probably be a lot more stable.